Vacation plans, long commute, weekend at the cabin. Wherever you end up this summer, the Connector Idaho Daily News helps keep you connected to Idaho, even while you're away. Get the top local stories every weekday morning in just a few minutes. That's the Connector Idaho Daily News. Listen on your podcast app.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Samantha Wright, filling in for Jim McGaudette. It's Idaho Matters. And it's time for our Reporter Roundtable, when we get you up to date on all the news that made headlines this past week. Wildfires continue to burn in Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. We've got updates on 4 major blazes burning hundreds of thousands of acres of rangeland. Plus, a trial in the case of Michael Vaughn has been postponed. There's a blood shortage. The race for one Idaho senator just got smaller. McCall is rethinking the 4th of July. There's an update on the Anderson Ranch Dam project. And Idaho's huckleberry harvest is in trouble. Today, our panel will tackle all of that and more. We've got Max Silverson, editor of the Star News, Antonio Sansari, the interim editor of the Argus Observer, Brian Clark, Idaho Statesman opinion writer, and our very own George Prentice. And I want to say hi to everyone, and thank you for coming on this Friday. It's wonderful to have you here.
Great to be here.
George, let's start with you. Idaho Matters reported on Monday on the awful fires in Spokane and how more than 600 homes and buildings have burned. Now there's been an arrest of a suspect. Who is he? What do we know?
Oh, my goodness, and what a week it's been. He is Aaron Farinacci, 37 years old. He was arrested on Monday, and my goodness, we have learned quite a bit about this person, this suspect. For instance, we have learned that 14 years ago, Mr. Farinacci was accused of murder in the shooting death of his father, and he shot himself in the chest at the time. This took place in Maricopa County, Arizona, in 2012. He was fit to stand trial at the time. The murder charge was dropped down to a charge of manslaughter, and he was released on probation in 2020. At some point after that, he moved to Washington, and now we learn that he says he has started a string of fires in the Spokane area, starting on July 4th, 2025. And he has told prosecutors this week that he started as many as 24 small fires over that summer. And then this year, he went as far as tracking our weather and making certain what was the worst time that you could possibly start a fire. He idolized a convicted arsonist by the name of John Orr. Mr. Farinacci purchased items to make a device to ignite a wildfire, and indeed it was last Saturday that he ignited this fire. He was initially charged with one count of arson and held on a $1 million bond. The bond is now up to $2 million. He has now been charged with a number of other fires, and there's probably even more to come. My goodness.
Wow. And a lot of that is just found out in the past 24 hours. Wow. Okay. So what's the status of the fires and all the evacuations that we've heard about over the weekend in Spokane?
So the fire that we've been talking about, the fire that Farinacci is accused of starting, that's the Old Trails fire. That's one of a few fires. All in, they have now burned more than 10,000 acres. As of midday Friday, we're showing 23% contained, about 3,000 firefighters on the scene. And as far as evacuations, at a level 3, and again, that means a go evacuation. These are people who have actually run from the flames. We've seen much of that video by now, and we count as many as 13 areas or 13 neighborhoods that are at level 3. And just in the Old Trails fire, we show, my goodness, what do we have? 700 buildings lost, many of them homes.
Wow. Oh, man. Okay, George, thanks for keeping us up to date on that fire. And Antonio, you've been keeping an eye on 4 major wildfires that have burned close to I think, if my math is correct, almost 1 million acres in southern Oregon and Idaho. And we're hoping you can give us an update on the Big Grass Fire, the Fox Fire, and the Coleman Creek Fire. What do you know?
So the Big Grass Fire is one that I would characterize as still being very active. As of this morning, it has surpassed 440,000 acres, and it's very active on the eastern side in Owyhee County. On Tuesday, Governor Brad Little authorized the Idaho National Guard to assist down there. Then the Fox Fire was in Baker County, Oregon. That one burned right up against the town of Huntington, and it is at 60% containment, and it's burned about 79,000 acres so far. One of the city councilors up in Huntington, Justin Power, credited the city's completely volunteer firefighting association for helping out a lot with that. And the town's mayor, Chuck Guerry, ran an evacuation bus to Ontario when they were on level 3 evacuations last week. Finally, the Coleman Creek Fire started in Kearney County, Oregon, and has now moved more than halfway across the width of Malheur County. It prompted level 3 evacuations in Juntura, and it burned a lot of rangeland out there. And that leads us to probably the biggest long-term story for a lot of these fires, which is what happens to the ranching families after the flames are gone.
Well, and we want to talk about that, but first give us an update on the Tartar Fire near Weiser. That fire's still burning, and this week ranchers and firefighters apparently clashed. Give us an update on the fire and the incident earlier this week. What do ranchers say? What do fire officials say happened?
Yeah, so the Tartar Fire near Weiser, it made a big run over this last weekend, over 80,000 acres in a day. And there are two accounts of what happened on Monday evening. Some ranchers have told me that they built fire lines with their own equipment to save grazing land, only to see Forest Service crews intentionally ignite some of that unburned ground as part of suppression operations. Fire officials have confirmed that firing operations occurred in the Devil's Elbow area, but they also said that firefighters were threatened and harassed and had to temporarily withdraw for their own safety. Since then, a new management team has taken over, and communication appears to have improved dramatically, and the fire itself is in a much better position. Washington County Sheriff Matt Thomas said at the community meeting last night that communication was much better and that local ranchers and the incident command team are working together very well now.
And you mentioned a few times in your stories firing operations. And I think a lot of people may know that as backburning, right? That's when you burn an area on purpose. The idea is to make a spot to slow down the bigger fire.
Yes, that's right. Firefighters do deliberately burn fuel ahead of the wildfire so that there's less left for the wildfire to burn when it gets there. Crews did that overnight on Adams Creek in Washington County, Idaho, ahead of the northeast side of the Tartar Fire where it's most active.
Okay, and let's get back to the ranching and the rangeland and some of that back and forth there. We know that there are programs in Idaho and other places where ranchers and others can train to find out how to work with firefighters when something like this happens. They'll have bulldozers or tractors or things they can use. You wrote in a couple of stories about how devastating these fires will be to ranchers because it's burning up all the rangeland that's food for the cattle. What are the ranchers telling you about how big an effect these fires will have on their livelihood?
So it's going to have a big effect on their livelihood, and for most people, it still remains to be seen what that might look like. Rachel Hawkins, who's with her husband Ty, they ranch out in the Devil's Elbow area. She told me that they were spending hundreds of dollars a day just on fueling their bulldozer to go out and help with these fires. The grazing pasture is essentially their feed supply, and when that burns, the cattle still have to eat. So Kirk Chandler, another rancher in the Devil's Elbow area, told me that hay could cost approximately $200 a ton if they can even find enough to purchase, and a mile of fence could cost $15,000 just to repair. And that also takes a huge amount of time to do. So the loss of livestock also extends beyond the market value of the cattle in many cases because the breeding cows that are lost may have produced calves for years. And some ranchers are taking more cows earlier than expected to market because their grazing land is gone. Producers Livestock in Vail just said on Wednesday that they have a rancher from Weiser coming out with 250 head next Wednesday because all of his land burned.
And he's got nothing to feed the cows with. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay. The funeral home in McCall, Max, the McCall Funeral Home, is adding on-site cremation services, but apparently the neighbors didn't know that this was coming. So what happened? What's the story?
Yeah, this was kind of interesting. The funeral home has been in operation since the 1970s. It's kind of in a big intersection near McCall, very close to being in McCall at Sampson Trail and Dinehard Lane. It's also I think it functions as the county morgue. The funeral home owner is our Valley County coroner. And adding to that, funeral home business, he began constructing a crematorium inside there. So people only noticed when a chimney started going up on I guess it's not quite a garage, the chapel. It looks like a garage from one side.
And what do neighbors say about this? I mean, they just sort of found out, like you said, by seeing the equipment go in. What did you hear from them, and what did the funeral home owner say?
No, it sounded like they were a little shocked to see that happening. Mostly, they told me they weren't mad at the owner. They were mad kind of at the process of it all, and that has to do with the rules at the county. The funeral home owner, Scott Carver, had applied to Valley County Planning and Zoning to say, "Hey, I'm going to add this equipment. What do I need to do to make this legal?" Like going through all the steps you need to go through. There was not a hearing, but the P&Z Commission ruled in February that this was sort of a continuation of the same use. It didn't need a separate permit and could just kind of continue on as it was. And people didn't really agree they wanted to comment basically or be involved in the process.
Right. And you mentioned that this was just outside McCall city limits, and so there's kind of a different set of rules there.
Yeah, I think that's the most interesting thing about this story to me is that it depends on the jurisdiction you're in and what you can do with a facility like this. Because it's in Valley County, you're under Valley County rules. So you just need approval from P&Z, which was administrative. It wasn't a public hearing. If this was in the city of McCall, which is the other side of that street, you'd have had to go to McCall P&Z, and they have a different set of rules. This would have been a non-conforming use and required a public hearing. Could have potentially been approved regardless, but we don't know. And then another fun thing about this process is it's in the current McCall area of impact. Let's see, what the history on that has just changed as well. Previously, I guess it was until last fall, the McCall area of impact was about 2,000 acres, maybe larger. I might not have that right, but it was much larger than it is now. County commissioners decreased that to a very select few properties that are likely to be annexed in the city in the next 5 years. And that includes this property. And the big change is that the impact area used to be governed by city code, ultimately still by approval of county commissioners, but city code would have applied if this application came in about a year ago. So kind of depends on when you make your application, I guess.
And as you said, location, because I didn't realize it was right across the street. The dividing line was on either side of the street.
It's right there. Yeah, it's right next to a middle school. It's interesting.
Wow.
And it's not a unheard of thing either. I looked it up. There are 4 crematoriums in the city of Boise, so it's not something you never see in a city. It's just unusual for us in McCall.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting story. Antonio, a trial in the case of Michael Vaughn, who disappeared from Fruitland, I think over 5 years ago, has been postponed. Remind us, who is Michael and about his disappearance?
Michael Joseph Vaughn was 5 years old when he disappeared from his Fruitland neighborhood while playing outside on July 27th, 2021. His nickname was Monkey because he was a very energetic child that loved playing and climbing on things. It's now been more than 5 years, and his family still doesn't know where he is.
I remember when this happened. It was really, really scary. So tell us about Stacy Wondra. Who is Stacy Wondra, and what's he charged with?
Stacy James Wandra is the man that prosecutors accuse of being involved in Michael's kidnapping and death. He faces charges including first-degree murder, second-degree kidnapping, and concealing evidence.
Okay, so why was his trial delayed? Because this was supposed to happen, pretty soon.
It was supposed to happen pretty soon. The defense wanted more time to prepare the case, and prosecutors did not object to that. So it's now been postponed for another 7 months.
And Michael, he's never been found. What did his mom say? Because his mom came out and talked about the trial being postponed.
For his mother, Brandy Vaughn, this isn't primarily about the date or a court calendar. It's another 7 months without knowing where her son is. And she did say that she wants to see things done the right way, but she said at the press conference on July 27th of this year that she spent 5 years with every moment missing Michael, loving Michael, and wanting Michael to come home.
So when is the new trial date? We have to wait until next year, right?
The new trial date is set for March 29th, 2027.
Okay. More on that, I am sure. George, there's a huge blood shortage going on. How significant is this crisis? Sometimes I think we hear about blood shortages all the time. This one apparently is a little different.
Yeah, in a climate where we use a lot of superlatives and things sometimes are over dramatized, the Red Cross rarely uses the word crisis. And in this particular case, they are calling it a crisis. Only the second crisis in their history, so they say. The first was, as you can guess, at the height of the pandemic. So this summer, the nation's blood supply has dropped by about 25%, 25%. And the timing could not be worse. As you can imagine, blood drives at schools and colleges are on hiatus. All that trends coincides with a jump in the need for blood. More people are outside. They're biking. They're on motorcycles, doing other activities that can cause injuries requiring transfusions. So the Red Cross says there's currently a deficit of thousands of units of blood each week that could force some hospitals to do things like delay procedures. And we're talking about blood that is needed for everything from real serious procedures to cancer patients, you name it. So, yeah, in their words, this is a big crisis.
Do they need particular types of blood?
The need is across the board, but there is one particular type. I had a chance to talk with Michael Oxner, and he is a Red Cross Communications Director for Idaho and Montana. Let's take a listen.
Type O negative blood, of course, is the universal blood doctors reach for during emergency when they don't have the time to determine someone's blood type. O positive blood is the most common blood and the most transfused blood. What we don't want to see happen is hospitals, doctors having to make decisions and delay an elective surgery, maybe delay a cancer treatment, or in a worst case scenario, have to delay a more important procedure.
Wow. I'm sorry, George, I'm stuck on delaying your cancer treatment because there's not enough blood. That is really scary. I mean, all of it's scary, but, we know what happens if you miss cancer treatments. Okay, there's a special incentive for blood donors this month, yes?
Yeah, so by the way, they're saying if 3 more donors gave at each blood drive this month, they could help this whole thing rebound. So you can go to Red Cross Blood, all one word, redcrossblood.org, and type in your zip code, and then you can find a blood drive near you. I'm looking at it here in the Treasure Valley, and I see half a dozen just on Friday. More over the weekend, certainly at Red Cross facilities, but they quite often bring blood drives to you at churches and schools when they reopen, but right now it's mostly churches. So again, redcrossblood.org, or you can call 1-800 Red Cross. And in the month of August, if you make a donation, they will give you a $20 Amazon gift card.
Wow. Okay, just 3 people per drive. That you can really make
Yeah.
a difference. I mean,
Mhm.
1, 2, 3 people can make a difference.
Yep.
All right, Brian, you wrote an opinion piece about Democratic candidate David Roth stepping down to try and help independent candidate Todd Achilles in the race against Idaho Senator Jim Risch. Tell us a little bit about the decision and what we know about it.
Yeah, so David Roth had been a challenger. He'd run on the Democratic ticket for a number of years now. There had been a bit of infighting about whether he ought to step down to make way for Todd Achilles, who's running as an independent candidate against Risch, so that they're not sort of splitting the vote there. Roth ultimately did decide recently to step down, so the race is going to be Achilles versus Risch.
And what are people saying? Does Achilles have a real chance against Risch, who's been in office for
Well,
quite a while?
yeah, so it's hard to say for sure. There's not a great deal of polling data in Idaho. You'd have to say that that Achilles has certainly a very uphill battle, because if you look back at all statewide elections in Idaho, a Democrat has not won since Walt Minnick back in 2008. So that's a very long time without anyone. I should say any non-Republican. No non-Republican has won since then. So those are very uphill odds. The argument I make in my piece is that that's a real shame because Risch has been consistently failing to do his job. He leads the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations, but it has failed to seriously look into any of the major foreign policy issues that are going on right now. For example, the Iran war, there's not been a single investigatory hearing held on it, even though it's been ongoing for months.
So it is an opinion piece. You asked your readers if Risch should be reelected. You talked about, I think you cited what you called a lack of accomplishment in office. Um, so why do you think he keeps getting reelected? Is this just because he's the GOP candidate? You mentioned it's been since 2008 since we've had a Democrat who has won that kind of seat.
Yeah, that seems to be the simplest explanation. They're simply put, if you're on a statewide ballot in Idaho and you're a Republican, you will win. That has been sort of the iron law since the early 2000s. Could change in the future. There's nothing written in stone to say it couldn't, but that's certainly the overwhelming pattern, and it's a tough hill to climb for Achilles.
All right, there's a lot in here, so check it out. Brian's piece. Brian, thank you.
Thank you.
2 weeks ago, a Utah woman died in a rafting accident on the Payette River. Max, give us the story. What happened here?
Yeah, this was a really tragic story that we covered in the newspaper. It was written by my colleague Sierra Christie, who wrote two stories about it. What happened that day was there was a raft trip by this company, Creature Craft, that runs the Payette, the North Fork of the Payette, which is one of the more dangerous technical sections of whitewater in the country. It's the highest level of danger and a place you don't go unless you're a complete expert. And one of the six rafts in this trip got hung up on a rock with three people on board. And there were some efforts to help them out and get them unstuck from that rock that pinned the raft. And at that point, people were still strapped into the raft, which is a unique feature of this type of craft here that it operates with like a harness system. And one of them was submerged in the water for an extended period of time in the rapids and eventually was freed and floated down the river, but at that point had no pulse, no wasn't breathing, and was eventually recovered and taken to a hospital, but was pronounced dead after that.
Okay, so what is a creature craft? I had never heard of these, and since we're on the radio, can you describe what one of these
Yes,
looks
definitely.
like?
It's
Yeah.
not a very common thing. They're mostly made for river rescue. My contribution to this article was interviewing the owner of the company,
Mm.
and he said that 9 out of 10 of these are sold to EMS services that use them for river rescue. There's not a lot of recreation use, but it's similar. Looks like it's made out of the same material as the usual raft you see on the river. There are these giant inflatable tubes. It's sort of a catamaran style. But at the front and the back, there's a little kind of horizontal tube that looks like a little hammerhead thing. And then the big unique feature of these is that they're self-righting, and that happens by sort of a tube that goes up and over, and then there's another horizontal tube on top. And if that sounds completely incomprehensible, I understand that. Like Google creature craft and you'll see what it looks like. You kind of need to see it to believe it. And the part about the craft that you don't see from the outside is how it's made. It's part river raft and part kind of stand-up paddleboard construction. So it has this rigidity to it that most rafts don't. And the reason for that is so that the structure doesn't crumble if it is pinned between a rock and the river pressure.
Well,
It's piloted mostly by someone on oars, kind of in the back, like you would see on an outfitted raft. This one in particular had someone piloting with oars and two people in front of them, one on each side, with just a handheld paddle to assist, which I guess is a way you can do that.
and you mentioned they're strapped in for safety. It sounds like there was an attempt at a rescue, and that everybody was trying to do the right thing. But you also, in the story, talked to a rescuer. They had some good advice about training and planning ahead for emergencies like this on the river, and what to do, knowing what to do in a thing like this.
Yeah, we talked to Tren Long of Cascade Raft and Kayak, and he had a lot of good advice just generally on river rescues and river preparation. Like, you need to know what you're doing on a river and what you're going to do if things go poorly. And his biggest recommendation was to take a swiftwater rescue course and really just don't go on this portion of river kind of between Smith's Ferry and Banks unless you are an absolute expert at kayaking, rafting, creature crafting. And there's a lot of it's been a very divisive issue. Like the river community has strong opinions on creature craft. A lot of people really don't like them. A lot of people really do like them. And there's been kind of a lot of arguments about what went wrong here, and it's been framed sort of as a rescue gone wrong, which could be part of it. It seems like a lot went wrong on this specific incident, and it's a tragic thing that happened, but it's also a thing that people should look back on and kind of think about what could have been done differently for future rescues, because this won't be the last emergency in the Payette River.
No, especially as rafting of all kinds is more and more popular.
Mhm.
Okay. George, let's stay in the mountains. Huckleberries are to Idaho, sort of like Marion berries are to Oregon. They're iconic. They're in everything from ice cream to pie. But there's a problem with the harvest this year. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, right, pie and the ice cream and huckleberry jam.
Mm.
There's a reason why visitidaho.org actually has a full page on huckleberries and huckleberry foraging. It is Idaho's official fruit. You can hunt for huckleberries, certainly in the Boise foothills, and I used to hunt for them in Ponderosa Park and McCall, up to the Coeur d'Alene National Forest, over at Eastern Idaho and Island Park, just about everywhere. But the harvest is poor at best this year. Idaho's favorite fruit has taken a 1-2 punch. And some folks are thinking, oh, yeah, well, maybe they're just taking their time. No, We've talked to experts. They're not taking their time. So the huckleberry harvest, as much as foraging is a rite of summer, this year climate change has taken another victim, our wild huckleberry season.
Like you said, there was some confusion. Some people are just thinking the season is delayed.
Yeah, there have been some reports and a lot of chatter on social media, as you can guess, of folks saying, oh, it's probably delayed. But I got a chance to speak with Idaho Fish and Game's lead botanist. Her name is Lynn Kinter, and she says, nope, what you see is pretty much what we've got. Let's take a listen.
There were at least two things that would affect the fruit being formed. One is that if there's a low snowpack, as we had this winter, and then it's cold, the buds will get nipped by the cold. And then another kind of a double whammy is if there's a late frost. So we did have some late frost, and if, especially in the mountains, if there's cold weather and no snow cover during that time, then either the buds get nipped or the flowers themselves are killed and can't be pollinated.
So it's not so that it's a later season. You said a lower production.
Given that we had such a mild spring, I wouldn't expect it to be a later season. If anything, I'd expect it to be a little bit early. And a lot of the flowers were early this year. So I would have expected the huckleberries, perhaps the plants themselves, to have flowered a little bit early, if anything. So I don't expect it to be a late season. I think it's just going to be a low production year.
That's sad.
Oh, wow. It's incredibly sad. So is there any extra impact to the huckleberries from all the smoke we've been having?
Yeah, good question. And we posed that. And indeed, the smoke isn't helping. I guess if there's a 1-2 punch, there was a third, because as you would guess, huckleberries like a moist climate, right? If anything, they like it a little cooler, but a moist climate. And my gosh, it is very hot and very, very dry. Our huckleberry season usually runs mid-June through late summer, sometimes as late as October, according to the Department of Commerce. But again, this is a really low production year, and the harvest is poor at best.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot, George, about your favorite way to eat huckleberries. I like them in chocolate. I know a couple places that make some mean huckleberry truffles. What about you? What's your favorite huckleberry?
Well, there's nothing better than someone gifting you some huckleberry jam, but I do love huckleberry ice cream. I think that's a rite of summer too, is going up to a Idaho ice cream parlor, and huckleberry is at the top, certainly above vanilla or chocolate in the summer.
Oh, wow. Okay. Antonio, who is Abby Gervin McKay? You've got a great story. Who is she?
Abby is an 18-year-old from Western Idaho who completed a pretty extraordinary combination of accomplishments before leaving New Plymouth High School. She earned her high school diploma while also earning her associate degree in general studies through the College of Western Idaho, and she completed all of the training necessary to become a certified nursing assistant. She's already accumulated about 100 college credits and completed CNA clinical experience in both a nursing home and a hospital.
She did all this while she was finishing up high school, and she was still active in a bunch of other high school activities, right?
Mm-hmm. A huge part of it just came down to time management and determination. She said once she found a routine, it was easy for her. Abby was finishing high school, going to college, and beginning a health career all at the same time, while she participated in numerous school activities like sports, student government, FFA, National Honor Society, and other organizations.
Wow. When I was looking at this story, all I could think of was there were days in high school when I couldn't find a cafeteria. I'm impressed. What's next for Abby? What's next for her? Going on to take on the world? Because, wow.
Yeah, Abby decided to go to college out of state. She's going to go to the University of California, Irvine, where she plans to study biological sciences on a pre-med track. And because of all those college credits, she's entering as a first-year student, but she already has a junior standing. She has a huge academics head start. But one of the nicest things I thought she told me was that what she was most excited for going to college is just meeting new people.
Wow, that is an awesome story. Thanks, Antonio. George, we have reported before here on Idaho Matters about the Anderson Ranch Dam project. I think it was a few years ago. But remind our listeners how big of a project this really is.
Can you imagine how considerable this engineering feat would be if and when it happens? We're talking about raising the Anderson Ranch Dam, raising a dam. And the timing couldn't be better slash worse if you consider the situation of our drought. What could happen is the addition of almost 30,000 acre feet of storage, additional 30,000 acre feet of water storage. And Anderson Ranch, then we're talking about water flows from Anderson Ranch to the South Fork of the Boise River and then on to Arrow Rock and Lucky Peak reservoirs. This would be a really big deal. So yesterday, and they've been talking about this for a couple of decades now, talking about other options, and for about the past 10 years, saying, yep, this is probably what we need to do. So yesterday, the Idaho Water Resource Board got together for a workshop meeting, and it was number 6 on their agenda. And you can imagine a lot of anticipation for an update.
And you were there, so
I was not there, but
you
it was in eastern Idaho.
You were.
I was not there because it was on Yellowstone Highway in Rexburg.
Ooh.
So I had to listen in.
Okay, so what did you hear when you were listening in?
Not much.
Oh, okay.
Not much, honestly. So Ryan Elkhorn is with the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, and he updated the board, and he said this is the critical path that we're on right now, and that was pretty much all he said. Now, critical because indeed they've got to agree on an environmental impact study with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So when a board member asked him if he had an estimate of when the project might be put out for bid, he said, I do not.
Okay.
Crickets. And then the board member tried to press a little more and asked, well, what might be a typical time frame between you publishing an environmental impact study and putting this out for bid? And then he said, sometime in 2027, silence. To which a board member just said, well, we're just excited to get this thing started. It was as short an update on a huge project as you will ever hear.
Well, okay. And as you said, it is a massive project. So what is the next step? I mean,
well, it is this environmental impact study. So we see, I'm looking into some of the data, their upcoming key milestones, and there's only 2 lines here. The first line is complete the environmental compliance. The second line is update the total project cost. Now, at last count, this was estimated to be about $129 million. $129 million. That's worth repeating. But they're saying that they will put a finer point on that. And sometime in 2027, fingers crossed, they'll put it out to bid.
All right. And if you want to know how important Anderson Ranch Dam is, just Google Boise teacup map and take a look at the map that's from the Hydromet. I'm looking at it right now. Anderson Ranch Dam is 70% full. It's the middle of August, and it's still 70% full. So that's how important it is. George, thank you.
And by the way, there have been so many stops and starts on this project, and we've reported on those as well. And you can update yourself at our website, boisestatepublicradio.org. Quick pitch there.
Nice. Okay, we've got 4 minutes left. So, Max, I'm going to give you 2 of those minutes to tell me why McCall is thinking about making changes to its 4th of July celebrations. Why? And tell me about this survey.
Yeah, sure thing. I will try and be quick. The city has put out a survey to see what people want from the 4th of July celebration. And as you probably know, that this is one of the biggest weekends, the biggest weekend in McCall in the summertime. There's a lot of events, a lot going on. The city funds the fireworks display, and that started in 2016. It was previously the Chamber of Commerce that put that together. 2016 was also when the city and county enacted an alcohol ban to kind of try and make it a more family-friendly event. So the survey asks what people think about the current festival and what they would like to see in the future.
Gotcha. And don't they actually spend more on taking care of the festival than the actual fireworks? I think I saw in there.
Yeah, so the city, that's kind of a new change this year too, I think. So the fireworks display itself costs about $30,000. This year, the city spent $50,000 for public safety, security, traffic management, emergency response, cleanup, stuff like that. And the new expense there was I forget the total, but a significant portion of that was to hire extra security guards and buy some fencing to kind of make downtown and Legacy Park in particular a little more family friendly in an effort to kind of curb underage drinking.
Wow. Okay, there's a survey. We're going to link to it and to the story. Max, thank you.
Thank you.
Antonio, I want to say congratulations to the Argus Observer, recently picking up 9 awards in the Oregon Newspaper Publishers Association's Better Newspaper Contest, including General Excellence, Online Breaking News Coverage, Government Coverage, and Enterprise Reporting. You've got a minute to talk about the Online Breaking News Coverage story. What was this story? And you had a lot of competition for this one, sounds like.
So the award was for an open category that included newspapers of all sizes. Our coverage was on the historic flooding of the Malheur River that happened last February. And in second place, we had the Oregonian, and in third place, the Chronicle. So it was very proud, made us very proud to see our small 2-person newsroom be recognized alongside some of the largest newspapers in the state.
Well, I want to say congratulations for all the awards, and man, you are doing a lot of fire coverage at the Argus Observer and the effects of the fire. So kudos to you for everything you've been doing and keeping people informed, and for taking some time for us. Thanks for that too.
Thank you.
I want to thank all the great reporters today, everybody who has been here. Max Silverson, editor of the Star News, Antonio Sunseri, the interim editor of the Argus Observer, Brian Clark, Idaho Statesman opinion writer, and our very own George Prentice. Thanks, everybody, for coming on the show today. Really appreciate it.
Congratulations, Antonio.
And thanks so much for listening to Idaho Matters from Boise State Public Radio. Do you have thoughts about today's episode? Make sure you email us at idahomatters@boisestate.edu or reach out on our socials. Find this and other Boise State Public Radio podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening right now.
The fatal shooting of a teenager at a protest in Seattle has gone unsolved for 6 years.
This is open in your face. How are there no answers?
Our investigation has uncovered new evidence and witnesses who say they've never talked to police.
Did police ever call you?
Not once.
Listen to We Keep Us Safe, a new true crime series on the Embedded podcast from NPR.